So we've got 6 queer couples, 1 massive ultimatum, and already we're seeing attachment wounds, emotional shutdowns, and 1 partner's ready to walk out of the experiment before it even begins. And I'm a couples therapist, and I'm breaking down episode 1 of the Ultimatum Queer Love Season 2 through a counselor's lens so you can understand the real dynamics underneath the drama that's happening.
I came in this process with Brittany, but I'm digging everybody. Dana looks hot as shit.
My name's Katie Sloan. I'm a licensed therapist. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I specialize in queer relationships, and I'm diving into each episode of the Ultimatum Queer Love Season 2. This is to help you better understand love and commitment, communication, managing conflict, and I do tend to view couples through the lens of attachment theory. And because of the nature of this show, there usually tends to be 1 person who has anxious attachment and 1 person who has avoidant attachment. This isn't always the case, but it usually is. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about when I talk about attachment styles, then let me know in the comments and I'll explain them in more detail. I have these handy dandy and childlike drawings I've made to help educate my clients and viewers. And please hit the subscribe button, especially if you're part of the LGBTQ+ community and you want to see more diversity in content creators. I identify as a lesbian. I have 4 kids. I have a wife. I've been out for 25 years, so I've seen a lot happen in the queer community during this time, and I just think it's super cool to have this representation on a reality TV show that everybody gets to see, even if it's messy, and it's always messy.
Fletcher is messy.
No, Fletcher is messy, but she's still hot. You can't deny that.
Yeah.
She's just the right amount of gay. I love it.
The 4 themes that I'm going to be focusing on this episode are ultimatums, number 2, attachment styles, number 3, internalized homophobia and cultural pressures, and number 4, relationship avoidance. So let's start with the obvious, ultimatums. They sound harsh, but they're not always manipulative. So a healthy ultimatum is just a boundary with a timeline. So it's saying, this is what I need in order to stay in this relationship. So where it gets unhealthy is when it's used to control rather than clarify. For example, Brittany has been with AJ for 5 years. She's ready to settle down, and AJ isn't. And Brittany's ultimatum is her attempt to stop the waiting game. But notice how anxious Brittany looks, and then how shut down AJ becomes.
I brought us here because I want you, and now I'm losing you to hopefully gain you forever.
And that's not just a miscommunication, it's classic attachment tension, which is anxious meets avoidant. They're stuck in the anxious avoidant trap. Let's move on to theme 2, which is attachment styles in action. So as a therapist, I look for what drives people emotionally. And AJ shows signs of avoidant attachment, which is pulling away when the stakes get too high. And Brittany seems anxious, and that's needing more reassurance and certainty than AJ can provide. It's this fear of a really deep fear of abandonment. And when these styles collide, you get a loop. One chases and the other retreats.
I do have a lot of hesitation. Brittany has done a lot in her life, putting herself through school, getting her degrees, house, car, pushing herself beyond bounds and limits that anybody has ever placed on her. So someone like this deserves everything before I take that next step.
Here's a little drawing I have from my handy dandy notebook. So this is why it's important to know your attachment style before committing to marriage. And it's not about fixing each other. It's just about understanding how you both respond to intimacy and stress. And I want to add that no attachment style is good or bad, right or wrong. You just learn to manage your own attachment style, and you can help manage your partner's if you know what it is. And it's also not a diagnosis. It's not a mental illness. Theme number 3 is internalized homophobia and cultural pressures. So Megan's story really stood out to me. She's not fully out to her family and seems to carry a lot of deep cultural shame.
I come from an Arab household. I'm Lebanese. My family doesn't want me to be with a woman. In the community, portraying yourself in a certain way is very important. Nobody's out and proud.
And when you haven't fully accepted yourself, it's incredibly hard to commit to somebody else. And in queer relationships, we often forget that the road to marriage can include layers of grief coming out and this internalized messaging about what kind of love is acceptable. So for some, being seen is really scary, and Megan says very directly, this might be too much. And that's not just drama, that's trauma. Theme number 4 is relationship avoidance, dressed as I'm not ready. So let's look at Pilar and Haley. They've been together for 10 years. 10 years. Haley is ready to commit, but Pilar keeps avoiding. So when somebody says, I don't know if I want marriage, that's fair. There are many reasons that people don't want to marry, and that's fine. But after a decade, it's worth asking, what are you really afraid of? Is it marriage or is it intimacy?
And then I feel more guilty that I'm not brave enough to be that person.
So some takeaways from this. If you're watching this and you're relating to these couples, here's what I want you to know. Ultimatums don't have to be toxic, but clarity is key, and hopefully these couples will get clarity. Your attachment style shows up in how you handle conflict and connection. And queer relationships often carry invisible weight. This is cultural shame, coming out, and family rejection. And also, don't wait for conflict to get this big before you go to therapy. So, which couple do you relate to the most, and what would you do if you were in their shoes? So, I'll be back with episode 2. I've only watched episode 1. I would binge watch if I could, but I've got to get some sleep tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Be kind, be curious. I'll see you next time.